One day I decided that sitting behind a desk was too much for me, and I chose to take up my grandpa's offer on becoming my very own farmer. I could only imagine the vast lands where I could grow thousands of crops and house thousands of animals. Oh damn. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This time I'll be spending the next 100 days in the smallest farm in Stardew Valley, with the eventual goal of the series being perfection, and of course becoming a millionaire. It turns out that there was a huge mistake in the paperwork and Grandpa was actually broke, and his farm was tiny, which is exactly how it's described in the mod description, which was just super funny to read. Let's see how we do with only a tiny space to work with. As soon as I stepped off the bus, I finally realised that Grandpa wasn't the man I had remembered from my childhood, and he had sold me a complete lie. This land here is exactly what I have to grow crops, build barns, and pretty much everything else. I made sure to clear out as much debris as I could, and chopped only a couple trees before planting my parsnips. I didn't have the energy to water them all, which was already my first mistake, but I did make myself a quick chest to store all of my items whilst I explored the rest of the town. I picked up some kale seeds from Pierre, and Marnie caught me digging through the garbage, which definitely didn't help my reputation at the moment. Luckily there were a bunch of wild spring onions laying around, which allowed me to head back home, if you can even call it a home, and finish off watering my crops. Overnight I made it to level 1 foraging and proceeded to water the remainder of the crops. In typical day 2 fashion, I picked up the old rod from Willie and begun fishing in the ocean. I then proceeded to spend the entire rest of the day up at the mountain lake doing more fishing. Over the next few weeks I'm trying to stay as far away from my farm as possible, in order to not make the townsfolk think I'm poor, and in all honesty, there was so little room on the farm I could barely breathe anyway. Passing out, I made it all the way to fishing level 3 and planted some carrot seeds. Luckily it was raining today, which would save me watering my crops. Rain also meant I could catch the catfish today, which I made sure to do this morning. I would need a catfish to donate to the community centre, as well as an eel, so I also got that today. Dropping them all back home, I spent the remainder of day 3 back up the mountain lake doing more fishing. The rain had passed overnight and I was back to watering the crops before rushing down to Willie's to sell all of my catfish for 2.6 thousand gold, giving me enough to buy the fiberglass fishing pole. And I'm really sorry if fishing is boring, but I did spend another whole day at the mountain lake, fishing, although I did call it early in the evening. But luckily day 5 was much more exciting, as today was the first day of the mines opening up. But before then, my worst fear happened. A local villager had found their way onto my tiny land, and my entire anonymous life has now been ruined, filled and complete with utter embarrassment. I told the strange woman to leave her cat behind and get off my land. That was weird. Anyway, my parsnips are ready to collect, which would prove to be great energy inside the mines. Before then, I did read the plaque inside the abandoned community centre, as that was going to be my preferred path for this series. Since the entire village is now going to be gossiping about me behind my back, I thought they will forget all about my tiny little farm once they see I single-handedly restored the community centre. Inside Pierre's, I purchased the backpack upgrade and dove straight into the mines. It turned out to be such a great day and I managed to reach floor 20. And I'd begun smelting a bunch of copper bars. For now, I could place my chest and furnaces just here, but once we start getting barns and coops, we need to be more cleverer on where to put things. I had some carrots ready to collect today, and I also ventured across the entire valley to forage for even more spring onions, and enough forage to complete the spring foraging bundle, which unlocked even more bundles to complete. Back at Pierre's, I bought a bunch more kale, a potato, and a green bean seed, and opened up a load more geodes at Clint's, which gave me enough gold to send off my pickaxe for an upgrade to copper. I had some very large and outright annoying boulders on my farm, which I couldn't remove until I had a steel pickaxe, so getting the upgrades early will be essential to maximise my tiny farm space. Back on the farm, the crop space was already taking up so much, so I became worried on how I was expected to build both a barn and a coop here. And that still doesn't equate for other things like silos, the 4 obelisks, and even a slime hutch. There's no way it's all getting in here. And is something missing? I don't know, it just feels off. Anyway, the remainder of the day was spent chopping down trees in the Cindersap forest and starting to create my very own tree farm. I wasn't sure why I chose to create a tree farm here, as I clearly don't have the room for it. I wasn't too bothered about my chests for now, they were in a good place, and since they were on tiles that weren't tillable, it didn't really matter. And finally, a big trip to the community centre to donate a bunch more fish, making good progress in the fish tank bundle. Overnight I did make it to level 2 farming, which was a nice bonus, and unlocked the crafting recipe for the sprinklers. The first batch of kale was ready today, and whilst I checked out the travelling cart, I chose to use the chair to access the secret woods in order to catch myself the wood skip. And for some strange reason, I decided to give myself even more watering to do by buying 15 more kale seeds, which did begin to take up a large portion of the farm now. My pickaxe had finally made it to copper, which meant I could return to the mines today to get even further down. It was a late night, but I did manage to make it all the way to floor 35 before rushing back home before I passed out. The next morning we had a lot more watering to do, but hopefully this will all be worth it when I manage to get some sprinklers set up. Yet again, day 9 was spent inside the mines, making it to floor 55 before I continued to reset floor 41 to get as much iron and coal as possible. And one more day inside the mines today. The lack of space on the farm meant I would have barely any space to grow crops until I unlocked either the quarry or Ginger Island, so completing the community centre is current mission number 1. By the end of day 10, I made it to floor 70, meaning that there was only 10 more floors until the lava levels. Day 11 started with a trip to the museum to donate a few more artifacts I had collected over the course of a few days. Then once Clint's opened, I opened all of my geodes and donated a bunch more artifacts. Since it was raining again today, I decided to spend the entire day fishing in the river in order to catch as many catfish as I could, which do sell for quite a bit of gold. I had a bunch more kale ready today, alongside a load more watering. Today I had the hopes to get even further down in the mines before I send off my pickaxe for another upgrade to steel. And by 3:30 I had reached level 80, and then floor 90 just after 10 PM, which was a super great day for progression. Day 13 started by smelting even more bars and collecting the rest of my kale, leveling me up in farming. I chose to ship off all of the kale, and I crafted up 9 sprinklers to start automating all of the watering. Of course I didn't do too much today, as it was the day of the annual egg festival. Whilst here I purchased 17 strawberry seeds to plant back home, and it was also an event where me, a grown person, participates in a children's egg hunt, and I won it easily. Am I embarrassed? Absolutely not. Overnight I leveled up in farming, which was a nice bonus, but by day 14 it officially marks the halfway stage of the spring season. And in all honesty, the lack of space hasn't really given me that many problems. If only I knew what lay ahead. First stop of the day was Clint's, where I sent off my pickaxe for an upgrade to steel, which left me on exactly 0 gold. With the lack of a pickaxe, I chose to do work on foraging today, by chopping down as many trees as I could in the Cindersap forest and collecting any forage I found along the way. I did also find Robin's lost axe, which I hope to give her back soon. Due to the lack of energy, I chose to sleep in early today, which brings us to day 15, which begun with a trip to the community centre to drop off a bunch more items, and it was also salmonberry season, which can provide me with a load of berries to replenish my energy inside the mines. The next trip, however, was Robin's, where I returned her lost axe to her, and she gave me 250 gold as a reward. Once again, I didn't have a pickaxe, which meant I spent the day back in the Cindersap forest, collecting as many salmon berries as I could, and chopping as many trees as I could, and in the end getting 55 in total. Day 16 was the day of my new steel pickaxe, which allowed me to reach floor 100 inside the mines, and allowed me to get my very first star drop of the small farm series. In regards to the rest of the day, I reset floor 21 for as much copper as I could whilst I smelted ores on the surface. Day 17 I was back at Clint's to open more geodes and also to sell enough quartz to afford to send off my axe for an upgrade to copper. Getting these tool upgrades done early will make the rest of the series much easier for me. After a few days of chopping trees, I had enough wood to repair the bridge on the beach to collect the forage that lay across there. And the rest of the day was spent fishing at the mountain lake. I didn't really need the gold at this point, but I really wanted to reach level 6 fishing to unlock the bait maker, which I managed to get overnight. I had a load of cauliflowers to collect today, which was a nice bonus, and my strawberries were coming along quite well. I was determined to reach the bottom of the mines today, which I managed to do in the late evening, and obviously collected the skull key. Since I can't really make a lot of gold from growing crops now, I will be using the skull caverns to make as much money as possible. I'll explain more later. My green bean plant was ready today, which meant I could donate a load more items inside the community centre. It begins by completing the spring crops bundle, which unlocked even more bundles. And in these bundles was the boiler room, which I already had everything ready to fully complete it. This will unlock the mine carts, which will make traversing the map much easier from now. At Clint's I picked up my copper axe and opened up again more geodes. And any new artifacts I got I donated straight to the museum. I would still need a steel axe to properly access the secret woods, but I could still chop the smaller stumps in here for enough hardwood in order to take 10 pieces of it to complete the construction bundle. I took the rest of the day to fish at the mountain lake again with the bait maker this time to catch a bunch of bullheads, since they do offer great levels of experience. Of course, overnight I watched the Junimos repair the minecarts, which means we're on day 20. I was shocked to see another human had visited my farm today, and it was Demetrius, offering to house mushrooms or bats inside the cave. I decided to go with fruit bats to help me progress the community centre a tiny bit easier. I was once again back at Clint's to send off my hoe to copper, before chopping down a bunch more trees inside the cindersap forest until my energy levels were pretty much zero. It was a great day today, as it marked the first harvest of my strawberries, which was enough to level me up in the farming skill. I have been checking out the travelling cart every single Friday and Sunday, but the reason I haven't mentioned it is it's not giving me anything. I sold everything at Pierre's and really contemplated buying the backpack upgrade for only 10,000 gold, but I chose to buy a whole load of kale instead, which would be fine until I realised I had just sent off my hoe for an upgrade. So, in order to plant them, I had to bomb the ground. So yeah, that was pretty stupid. The rain had returned today, which meant a whole day of fishing for catfish in the river. Although this time, I could use the bait maker to get a load more than usual. Late into the day, I went behind the bookseller to get one more prize ticket, which granted me 12 carrot seeds. And overnight I snuck in level 7 fishing. Unfortunately, after buying so much kale yesterday, I had to spend a lot of energy this morning watering, but it wasn't all bad since my hoe had finished upgrading to copper. I then sent off my axe straight away for an upgrade to steel, and then returned to Pierre's to sell enough salmon berries to afford the final backpack upgrade. After a few hours of farming copper on the lower levels of the mines, I managed to find myself my first ancient seed, which I took straight to the museum to collect my first ancient seed packet. I would need to set up a large farm of these on Ginger Island later into the series, so yeah, humble beginnings I guess. And the remainder of the day was spent farming iron and coal on the frozen levels. Day 24 began with a bunch of watering, but also marks the day of the flower dance. Of course, considering the town completely hates me, as I'm the loser with the smallest farm in the world, every single person rejected me, and I had to stand and watch from the sidelines. For some reason I got the message, that was a fun time to head home. No it wasn't. Day 25 was the second and final harvest of my strawberries, which leveled me up in farming again, and I made a trip to the community centre to drop off a few more items I had collected over the past week. I sold everything at Pierre's and picked up my new steel axe, and chose to send off my hoe for its second upgrade to steel. I would have loved to upgrade my watering can this season, but since I had bought so much kale, I couldn't afford to lose it for 2 days. With my new axe, I could finally access the secret woods the intended way, and collect a load more hardwood. I also found this strange crow, which sold some paintings. That was interesting. Never seen this before. And the remainder of the day was spent foraging and chopping even more trees. More watering yet again today, this is getting boring, but I did have 12 more carrots ready to collect. At the travelling cart, I purchased a cactus fruit, which was one of the items needed to complete the exotic foraging bundle, which gave me 5 autumn bounties. Quite boringly, I was back into the mines to farm even more copper and iron, and made up some crab pots to help me collect the remainder of the items for the crab pot bundle. And overnight I managed to sneak in level 6 foraging. Thankfully there's no more watering now, as the kale had finally grown, leveling me up in farming. I did also remember to access this secret area in order to collect the alleyway buffet book, which increases the chance of finding items in the trash. I picked up my new hoe and sold everything at Pierre's before donating the final items to complete the crab pot bundle, which gave me 3 crab pots as a reward. For the first time I checked out the farm cave, giving me a few more items. But here we are, the final day of the spring season, and my gosh has this gone so fast. And in all honesty, I'm ready to go into summer now. The day started with a trip to the travelling cart, and once again get nothing. In order to send off the spring season, I decided to make a big purchase today, building myself a new coop, which somehow just squeezed into this tiny area on the farm. Which was kind of perfect to be honest, since they weren't tillable spots. Don't ask me where I'm going to put the barn, but I did make sure to smelt some refined quartz to make some quality sprinklers, which means next season I shouldn't have to do any watering, which means I can finally sneak in some pesky watering can upgrades. In the end, this is how many I got down, plenty of room for loads of summer crops. I did decide to move my furnaces and chests down to this small little alley down the side of the house. That way I can lay some nice paths down the entire farm. And in the end I did sell a bunch of items in order to fund my summer seeds, and I went to bed, ending the spring season inside Tiny Farm. So here we are, the start of my first summer season inside Tiny Farm, and we have so much to do this season. It was nice to see Robin hard at work building my new coop, and I had a load of debris and withered crops to clear out this morning. I made sure to plant my singular ancient seed plant today, alongside the starfruit and summer squashes I had acquired over the last couple days. I then eagerly waited outside Pierre's to purchase myself a tomato seed, pepper, and some blueberries and melons. It didn't take me too long to get them all planted and watered into the ground, before wandering around the valley to try and find all of this new season's forage, which I could take to the community centre to complete the summer foraging bundle, getting even more summer seeds to plant. To wrap up such a busy day, I went to the ocean to catch some new fish, such as the red mullet and tuna. On to day 30, since I finally had an entirely automated watering system now, I could take my watering can off to Clint's to upgrade it straight to copper. Then I was off to the mountain lake to catch myself the sturgeon, for the lake fishing bundle of course, allowing me to fully complete it. It had been a while since I sat down and did some fishing, so I decided to spend the entire day up here. I was running some errands on day 31, which started in the cindersap forest to chop some more trees down, and then straight to Marnie's to buy myself some chickens to move into my newly constructed coop. Another issue of Tiny Farm would be hay. Since I wouldn't have the room to grow grass anymore, I would have to spend quite a lot of gold on it from Marnie's, which became quite annoying. Then I was back up at the mountain lake to fish even more. This time I was using the bait maker to exclusively catch largemouth bass, which can sell for a decent amount of gold. And overnight I made it to level 8 fishing with just over 4,000 gold. I started the day by spending 2,000 gold inside the community centre in the vault bundle, before picking up my new copper watering can from Clint's. Then I'm back to fishing for largemouth bass in the mountain lake. I should probably tell you why I'm even doing this, and it's quite simple. I need the gold. I had hopes to get enough gold to finish the vault bundle and access the skull caverns as early as possible, which will be a huge upgrade for us, giving us access to iridium ore and other great rewards as well. I didn't have any plan to sell the fish right now, that was until I reached level 10 fishing, which will make my fish worth 50% more. I did manage to find a dinosaur egg inside a treasure chest, although I won't be donating it straight to the museum. I will incubate it instead, to get my very own baby dinosaur. It was raining on day 33, and I was straight over to the travelling car for it to be disappointing once again. I then dropped off another artefact to the museum, before fishing in the ocean to catch the red snapper, which was all I needed to finish yet another bundle inside the fish tank. The remainder of the day was spent in the frozen levels of the mines to farm even more iron, and also slay a few more dust sprites. If I can slay 500 of them, I can get one of the best rings in the game, the burglar's ring. And I did manage to reach level 7 mining overnight. Day 34, I was inside the farm cave to collect a bunch more fruits to donate to the community centre. At Clint's, I dropped off my watering can for another upgrade, this time into steel. Then to level 20 in the mines to try and catch the ghost fish. And overnight I managed to make it to level 9 fishing. I did my daily chores this morning of collecting eggs and petting my chickens, before checking out the travelling cart to buy nothing once again. Then I took out my anger on some trees in the cindersap forest and the stumps in the secret woods. It was a quite slow day today, and I wrapped it up sorting my chests out late into the evening and finding any more items I could donate to the community centre, which I dropped off before rushing into bed. Day 36 starts the new week, and I was straight to Willie's to change my bobber to a little rubber duck. But the real reason I was here was to buy the iridium rod and a couple of dress spinners, which will speed up the fish biting. I decided to construct myself a silo in order to store all of my hay, which I don't have of course, so I'm not sure why I did this, and to be honest there wasn't even much room for it, and every time I build something, the farm gets smaller and smaller. The entire day was spent up at the mountain lake, yet again for more largemouth bass, even passing out at 2 AM. I didn't reach level 10 fishing today, which wasn't too much of a problem since I was still a distance away anyway, from having enough for the vault bundle. I'm not going to keep on boring you today, but day 37 was once again spent fishing at the mountain lake, and I did reach level 10 fishing overnight, allowing my fish to be worth 50% more. And in the morning, I had made 18,000 gold, which was quite good, but after 3 days of fishing, I had hoped I'd be closer to 40 by now. But I did spend the entire day fishing once again. This time I could get a lot of iridium quality catches, which sell for drastically more gold, which on day 39 put me on 25,000 gold. Of course, day 11 of summer is the luau. Before then, I spent 25,000 gold inside the vault bundle, which left only the 10,000 gold one and the 5,000 gold one. I did also receive a crystallarium as a reward, which will be useful when I duplicate jades for staircases. Once I unlock the bus to the desert of course. I didn't really have a good item for the soup, but an iridium quality largemouth bass still went down well with the governor, which marked a successful luau. Day 40 I was jump scared by my melons, as I had thought they were all fully grown today, which they hadn't, so that was stupid. Once again the travelling cart was absolute garbage, and seeing how close I was to finishing the vault bundle now, I just had to spend the entire day fishing for largemouth bass again, and in the end I made another 10,000 gold. The rain was back again today, but I was glad to see that my melons actually finished growing this time, giving me over 80 of them, levelling me up in farming in the process. At the community centre, I dropped off some summer crops and sold a whole load of melons at Pierre's. That gave me enough gold to finish the vault bundle inside the community centre. That means tomorrow I'll be able to travel to the desert. Since I had the gold, I chose to spend it on a second coop upgrade, and I spent the remainder of it on even more melon seeds, which if I planted today, I would be able to get one more harvest out of. Excitedly overnight I watched the Junimos repair the bus to the desert, which was super exciting, and I also snuck in level 7 farming. My blueberries were ready to collect on the day of day 42, giving me all I needed to complete the summer crops bundle, and I did also buy a red cabbage from the travelling cart, which was quite nice. I couldn't wait to travel to the desert today, so I sped up Pam to get there even quicker. First stop was the Oasis to meet Sandy, and then to the desert trader to get 4 staircases. But more importantly, I was here for the Skull Caverns. Since I only had a steel pickaxe, I had to use all of my iron and coal I got from farming the frozen levels to make 60 bombs, which should make up for it. In the end it was a great run, managing to get a prismatic shard, nearly 100 iridium ore, and even a rabbit's foot, making it to floor 101. I did make sure to leave a tiny bit early today, so I had enough time to trade my prismatic shard in to get the galaxy sword, which is one of the best weapons in the game of course. Before I left I traded any rubies and diamonds I had for some spicy eels and triple shot espressos, and some omni geodes for desert warp totems. This will make travelling to the desert much easier. I did also reach level 8 mining overnight, and a few more Skull Caverns runs should get me to level 10 mining easy. Day 43 was the annual Green Rain event, and usually I would spend it collecting as much mixed seeds and fibres as possible, but I chose not to this time, and instead chose to return to the Skull Caverns. And it was a good run, managing to find myself an auto grabber in a treasure room, which I could add to the coop alongside over 100 iridium ore again. I mentioned before how getting to the Skull Caverns was going to be my main moneymaker this series. Well, that's because of iridium bars. Since I could get so much iridium in the Skull Caverns, way more than I would probably ever need, I could instead smelt the bars and sell them for 1.5 thousand gold apiece after level 10 mining of course. And overnight I made it to level 9 mining and level 7 combat. Emily was at my door this morning letting me know that I can use her sewing machine whenever I wanted after finding some cloth yesterday in the Skull Caverns. On day 44 I received 10,000 gold from Mr. Key after reaching at least floor 25 yesterday, and I could finally incubate my dinosaur egg inside the newly upgraded coop. I then donated a lot more items such as the rabbit's foot and red cabbage to the community centre. Since I had the gold, I decided to send my pickaxe for an upgrade to gold, and opened up a bunch more geodes and donated any new artifacts I could find. I'm back at the ocean today to try and catch the pufferfish, which I need for the specialty fish bundle, and then I was to the desert to catch the sandfish, allowing me to complete it fully. We lose the footage for day 45 and day 46, but I spent day 45 chopping trees, and day 46 I did another Skull Caverns run, managing to reach level 10 mining and selling a bunch of iridium bars overnight, which now sell for 50% more, courtesy of level 10 mining. This puts us on to day 47, which we start on 26,000 gold. I decided to spend 20,000 gold on the final coop upgrade, and also buy the recipe for the big chest, which will be super useful at this point considering I don't have a lot of room for storage. I did pick up a help wanted quest which told me to slay 5 lava crabs, which I quickly ticked off today, allowing me to collect a prize ticket from Demetrius. This time I received a peach sapling, which I don't have the room to plant right now, but maybe inside the greenhouse or on Ginger Island. Day 48 was the day of the trout derby, so I took my bait maker to catch as many as possible. And in the afternoon I picked up my new gold axe, which I used to chop loads of trees in the Cindersap forest. Day 49 I chose to buy a rare seed from the travelling cart, but accidentally purchased a totem pole, which was super annoying. Since it was a Sunday, I could trade some jades which I've been duplicating inside the crystallariums for staircases at the desert trader. I also had a load of omni geodes from my travels, which I could open at Clint's to give me a load of new artifacts I could donate straight to the museum. Back home, I decided to ship off any items I didn't really need in order to raise some gold for some plans I have coming up. Day 22 of summer officially marks the halfway stage of the series, And I would like to say, if you're enjoying the video, a like and subscribe will be greatly appreciated. And without further delay, let's get straight back to the video. We did have some blueberries ready to pick today, and also some eggs ready from inside the coop. As soon as Clint's opened, I sent off my hoe for an upgrade to copper, and warped straight over to the desert to trade some iridium ore for some mega bombs. I know there's probably better things I can be doing with iridium ore, but this will help me get even further down inside the skull caverns. This time, I had some spicy eels to increase my luck. It was yet another great run with nearly 200 iridium ore, and I also found a nice cowboy hat on floor 100, and quickly warped home with a lot of useful items, with even a seed maker and crystallarium. Overnight I did reach level 8 farming, level 8 combat, and level 8 foraging, which was nice. Day 51 I collected a bottle of wine from my keg in order to complete the Enchanter's bundle from inside the community centre, and I went to try my luck catching this season's legendary fish, the Crimson Fish, which didn't actually take me that long to get. Day 52 I collected even more bars that I've been smelting overnight. Since I have so much ore from the Skull Caverns, I'm trying to smelt as often and as much as I can. I did buy some more hay this morning since I was running out, which is always super painful, but if I wanted to keep the animals happy, this is what I had to do. At Clint's my hoe was ready to collect, and I sent off my watering can for an upgrade to gold, and also gave Jody an emerald to wrap up a help wanted quest. I decided to turn some oak resin, copper, iron, and wood into some kegs. Even though I don't have a lot of them right now, I'll be needing loads of them for perfection. For now though, I began placing them inside the house. I was delighted to see that on day 53 I had another large harvest of melons, which came at the perfect time since I was quite low on gold at the moment. I did remember to donate 5 gold star quality melons to the community centre, getting me one step closer to unlocking the greenhouse, which will be such a huge boost for us. George had requested a hot pepper, which I promptly gave him this morning. After selling all the melons at Pierre's, I chose to buy a whole load of wheat seeds to replace them. I wasn't sure whether it was too late to plant them, but we'll see I guess. I did try and build myself a barn, but there was literally no room for it at the moment, even after moving some other buildings around. The Friday marks the final blueberry harvest of the season, and at the travelling cart I did buy myself a rare seed this time, and picked up my golden watering can. Even though it was late, I chose to head off to the Skull Caverns to get even more iridium to sell, and anything else whilst I was here. At Marnie's, I bought myself a white chicken and also a rabbit. I really wanted to finish the community centre fast, so I chose to mine out a load of wheat and farming space in order to build myself a barn. Now it's going to start getting crammed. In order to replenish my wood storage, I chose to chop down every tree I could find. What was lucky that overnight I was visited by the crop fairy, which instantly grew a load of wheat on the final day of the season. Day 56 I had a baby dinosaur finally hatch inside the coop, and also a load of wheat to collect courtesy of the crop fairy. At the travelling cart I bought one more rare seed and also a foraging book for some reason. I don't know why I bought this. Since it was a Sunday, I took the bus to the desert to trade some more staircases and any other items I had. After dropping 10 pieces of wheat to the fodder bundle, I headed down to the beach to enjoy the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies. And as tradition in every single Stardew Valley series, let's just listen and enjoy. Of course, the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies signals the end of the summer season, and here we are, day 57 marks the start of my favourite season in all of Stardew Valley, the fall. It was nice to see that the wheat I had planted had lasted overnight, allowing me to collect it without wasting anything. It was also the first day of my ancient fruit harvest, which will be turning straight into seeds again, and eventually turning my entire Ginger Island farm into purely ancient fruit. I planted the 2 rare seeds, alongside some pumpkin seeds I had laying around from the museum, before rushing off to Pierre's to buy even more full seeds. The seeds didn't take too long to plant and water, considering I now have a golden watering can and golden hoe. Linus gave me a prize ticket in exchange for a wild plum, which was awfully kind of him. One of the final fish I needed was the tiger trout, which I caught right away, completing the river fishing bundle. The final fish I needed for the fish tank was the walleye. Overnight I made it to level 9 farming, closing in on level 10. Day 58 I see that Robin is still hard at work on my barn, and then she magically appeared in town, saying her and Lewis had put up this special orders board overnight. But if you're working on my barn, how could you put up the board at the same time? Huh. Today, I spent some time inside the frozen levels of the mines to farm more iron and coal in order to make as many bombs as possible. And whilst I was down here, I'm also working towards the burglar's ring. And not just that, but I also had my first special order, which tasked me to slay 50 dust sprites, so it all kind of worked out today. In the evening, I made sure to hand Penny a birthday emerald, upping her to 2 hearts, and caught the seasonal legendary fish, the angler, in the river. I'm delighted to see that on day 59 Robin had finished my new barn, and Clint had sent me the crafting recipe for the geode crusher for completing his special order yesterday. And I didn't waste any time and bought myself a cow to move in. Amongst other tasks, that's all I really did today. Day 60 I really started to feel claustrophobic now, after the cows began to walk all over my farm. I cannot wait until I can move things elsewhere, such as the quarry or on Ginger Island. I chose to sell a load of iridium bars at Clint's in order to afford the next barn upgrade. And I returned to the desert to chop all of the trees and collect any forage that lay here. I did forget to mention, I did start a small tree farm here in the desert, as I really had no other place for one. And I would need oak resin for kegs somehow, you know. Using a cookout kit, I'd made myself a fried egg and the Mackie roll, which was needed for the chef's bundle. Day 61 I was back inside the Skull Caverns for another great run. Skipping over to day 62, it started at Clint's to sell even more iridium bars to afford the final barn upgrade. This will mean I can get pigs for that annoying truffle. I did also plant some mahogany seeds and covered them in tree fertilizer to get some more hardwood, and I'll be needing at least 200 of it to fix the boat to Ginger Island. In relation to artifacts, on day 63 Gunther is at my door giving me the rusty key, which I can use to access the sewers. But before then, I waited outside Marnie's to buy myself a goat. I then entered the sewers and met with Krobus, much earlier than intended, which was quite cool. In tradition, every Sunday, I returned to the desert to trade in some diamonds, rubies and jades, and chopped any trees that had grown there. Day 64 started with a bunch of cranberries, which will slowly boost my gold total, although my empire of iridium bars should give me way more than I need. Fall 8 is the start of blackberry season, which, well, I'll be participating in, as each bush can give you up to 3 blackberries, due to me having such a high foraging level. Linus did lose his blackberry basket, which I returned to him, before I ended up stealing all of the blackberries across Cindersap Forest before he could get any. The special order for this week was Juicy Bugs Wanted, but that would have to wait until later, as I wanted to find as many blackberries as I could. And in the end, I managed to find 72 of them. And then I did finally head back to the mines to try and farm for the bug meat. I didn't manage to get all 100 pieces, meaning I would have to return tomorrow. Day 65 I decided to zoom all the way out to collect even more blackberries, before returning to get the final pieces of bug meat, which made for a very boring day. My rabbit had produced a piece of wool this morning, which was another item I could donate to the animal bundle. Which means I only need the large milk and the large goat milk, or a large egg. Then off to Willie's to drop off the 100 pieces of bug meat to wrap up his special order. The next prize ticket was a Star Drop tea, which made for a good gift for someone's birthday. My new barn had finally finished, which meant I could head to Marnie's and buy myself a pig. And after it starts maturing, I can start collecting truffles. Over at Clint's, I decided to finally send off my pickaxe for its final upgrade to iridium, and yet again I went around collecting blackberries and chopping more trees, hoping to level up in foraging. Back to smelting more ores on day 67, followed by a cutscene with Willie explaining how he is super happy with all the bug meat I collected for him last week, and that it works super well as bait. And yet again, even more blackberry collecting today, followed by even more smelting and even more keg crafting. Day 68 I was outside of Marnie's to buy even more hay since I had ran out once again. Gosh, this is just super annoying. I hate buying hay, I feel like it's such a waste. My pickaxe had finally finished upgrading to iridium, and I did sell off a few more bars in order to afford a Combat Quarterly book and a price catalogue from the bookseller. I can trade in the Combat Quarterly book for some monster musk, which always comes in handy. So handy in fact, I used it right away to farm even more dust sprites in the frozen levels of the mines. I did spend the entire day in here getting over 65 pieces of coal, but even closer to that infamous burglar's ring. We're on day 69, it began with some cranberries and also some mahogany seeds ready to chop down, but since this was the first day of rain this season, I'd finally be able to catch the walleye, which did take me into the afternoon to get, but that meant I could complete my third room inside the community centre, and the glittering boulder will be removed overnight. Day 17 was the day of my pumpkin harvest, and even more mahogany trees were ready to cut down. I did remember to drop off 5 gold star quality ones at the community centre, alongside one for the full crops bundle. I did pick up my new copper pan from Willie today, which I sent straight off for an upgrade to steel. and yet again traded for even more staircases at the desert trader. Day 71 marks the new week in the fall season, and I had yet another ancient fruit ready to collect, which I could turn into more ancient seeds. I could also complete the fall crops bundle today, giving me a free beehive. The new week special order was from Emily. It was Emily's rock rejuvenation, so I made sure to collect all the gems and drop them off at her house. But before then, I moved some buildings around to make things a bit easier to navigate for the farm. I did forget to give the gems to Emily today and chose to go straight to bed. Unfortunately, I couldn't give them to her today either, as Fall 16 is the day of the Stardew Valley Fair, which was a nice surprise to be honest. I filled my inventory with a load of interesting items in the hope it would be enough to win the Grange display, which of course it did, come on. This gave me enough tokens to gamble until I had enough to buy the star drop and then the prize ticket, making it a very successful fair day. Day 73, I received a rabbit's foot from my rabbit, although I didn't really need one anymore. At Clint's, I collected my steel pan and opened up some mystery boxes. I then patiently waited outside Emily's door like a creep to hand her all the gems to complete the special order. I did fill my inventory with bombs ready for the skull cavern, but since half of the day had already gone, I chose to skip the day to day 74 where I could warp straight off. Just like every skull cavern's dive, it was very successful, getting a whole load of iridium and other goodies. I did end up passing out today, as I couldn't resist getting all of this iridium on floor 84. Day 75, my sweet gem berries were ready to collect, which meant I could offer one up to the statue in the secret woods, giving me yet another star drop. And I went around chopping every tree in the Cindersap forest with my newfound energy boost, and opened some geodes at Clint's, getting very close to completing the museum collection already. I did return to send off my pan to gold, getting it upgraded now before Ginger Island will be essential. I navigated to the Adventurers Guild and collected another book which will give me a 50% discount in Marlon's item recovery service. Day 76, I collected a sunflower which I needed to drop off inside the community centre, and on my return home I noticed that my pig had produced its first truffle, which means I could complete the chef's bundle and finally gotten one of the hardest community centre items off the list. I ran to the saloon to give Gus a catfish which I stole from the community centre fish tank to help wrap up a help wanted quest. Day 77, I was collecting some fall forage that had grown overnight, and just like every other Sunday, rode the bus to the desert to trade for more staircases, but also place some tappers on oak trees that had fully grown there. Day 78 marks the final week in the fall season, and it begins with some broccoli and also a large egg and a duck feather from my animals, which I could drop off at the community centre to complete the dye bundle, and it left only one more item to complete the animal bundle. The new special order this week is Gus's famous omelette, which is a nice easy one. It will just take some time to complete. From another prize ticket, I managed to get an apple sapling, which same with the peach one, I couldn't plant it as I don't have the room. Before calling it in for the night, I used up a load of iron and coal and made some bombs in preparations for a big Skull Caverns run I have planned tomorrow. Although I wasn't patient enough to wait until tomorrow, and even though I missed half the day, I still managed to get down to floor 78 before leaving. I had some more cranberries and corn today. I managed to get the 5 gold star quality ones to complete that bundle, leaving only the animal bundle until I unlocked the greenhouse. The entire day was yet another Skull Caverns run, since I didn't really have much more I could do at this point in the season. I found a second auto grabber today, which would make things much easier for my animals now. Day 80, I had some pumpkin juice ready to collect, which is what I've been doing with my pumpkins, just to make a little bit more gold from each of them. At Clint's, I picked up my golden pan and opened a whole load of more geodes. I had so many iridium bars today, I sold them all at Clint's, which put me on a total of 58,000 gold. I also gave George a birthday gift which upped him straight to 3 hearts. Then at Robin's, I decided to do the first house upgrade, and also buy myself a workbench and a calendar. At the desert, I expanded the tree farm even more, and then back to the Cindersap forest to clear out every tree I could. Day 81 starts by queuing outside Clint's to send off my axe for an upgrade to iridium, and then to Marnie's to buy 2 heaters in order to keep my animals nice and warm when we transition into winter. And honestly, I chose to head back into bed today. We had a load more crops to collect this morning, and a bunch of animal products from inside the coops and barns, but once again, I was seriously low on hay again, which means another load of gold wasted. Skipping to day 83, I'm back to smelting ores, and also moving some of my preserved jars into the newly expanded house. Upgrading the house will actually be a really clever way of gaining more space on the farm, as I can continue to upgrade this house pretty much as I want. I do want to move my furnaces and chests into the house now, to save on space, and that's exactly how I spent the rest of the day, creating a new chest area, and even a workbench in the centre, which will make crafting so much easier later down the line, and even now to be honest. In the evening, once I'd moved every item into their new home, was of course Spirit's Eve, so I traversed the maze, collected my golden pumpkin, and then went home. Day 84, I continued to move the remainder of the kegs into the new room. They weren't going to be here permanently, as I wouldn't have enough room for them all, but for now would work. Having so many extra chests will make storage much easier as well. I also made up 3 more crystallariums to start duplicating even more jades. At Clint's, I picked up my new iridium axe, which I used to chop more trees in the desert, and collected a whole load more oak resin. At the travelling cart, I bought a nautilus shell, which I could use to complete the field research bundle. And after more smelting, I decided to head to bed, ready for the new winter season. So here we are, day 85 is the start of the winter season, and the last 15 days will be huge for the rest of the series. We still have to complete the community centre, and I still want to make progress on Ginger Island. Yet again, I made even more crystallariums to duplicate even more jades and diamonds. This week's special order was from Gunther to collect 100 pieces of bone. So I spent the rest of the day in the frozen levels of the mines to slay as many skeletons as possible. Day 86 was spent farming for even more bones to finally get 100 pieces of it in the afternoon. But on winter 3, I finally found all of the winter forage, which means I can finally complete the crafts room bundle, unlocking the quarry in the morning. It was also Linus's birthday today, so I gave him a coconut which he loved. What was even better than that was I finally had enough apples from the farm cave to fully complete the bulletin board bundle, meaning I only have one more room left, which was the pantry, which unlocked the greenhouse, which I would need a large milk or large goat milk for. I was then down to the Cindersap forest to catch the glacier fish, which did prove some troubling, but I managed to get it. Day 88 I collected some horrible corn juice and smelted even more raws, but luckily my cows had produced a large milk, which means I could finally unlock the greenhouse, but more importantly, finally complete the community centre. This was the point, however, how happiness turned into sadness. For a while I had big plans for the greenhouse, but then I remembered. I don't have a greenhouse. There isn't one here. So overnight the Junimos restored absolutely nothing, which just absolutely filled me with sadness. After realising that, I chose to distract myself and go through the quarry cave to collect the golden scythe, and also bomb the entire quarry to collect a load more resources, but mainly just so I can use the space. My first plan was to grow crops here, until I realised that you can't grow crops here. Oh god, things aren't going as planned. It wasn't all bad, however, as I could still use the quarry to place kegs. Before heading to bed, I made sure to plant some powder melon seeds and some winter foraging seeds. Day 89, it was nice to see the whole town enjoying the restoration of the community centre and forgetting all about my disgusting tiny farm. And I also watched Pierre and Maurice settle things the old-fashioned way. I decided to skip the day today as I really wanted to get Willie's boat fixed. So, on day 90, I received a letter from Willie asking me to come round and see something in his back room. I then donated 5 battery packs, 5 iridium bars and 200 pieces of hardwood, which means I'll be able to travel to Ginger Island in the morning. I watched Robin repair the boat overnight, which meant only one thing, Ginger Island time. Once I arrived on the island, I collected the usual golden walnuts, and on the island west, I managed to get 2 snake vertebrae right away. I suppose the game's trying to make up for the greenhouse and the quarry now, aren't they? Yeah. My main priority was to plant my ancient seeds alongside a melon, garlic and wheat needed for the Gorman frog later. Day 92, I stayed on Ginger Island and repaired the bridge to the dig site, where I freed Professor Snail. Today was also the day of the Festival of Ice, but since it was super boring, I chose to spend it on the island. After donating a few bones to Professor Snail, I chose to dive into the volcano, and by 8 PM I managed to reach the summit and collect my free prismatic shard. And I spent the rest of the day clearing out the island farm before returning home in the evening. Day 93, I'm back to smelting, and I collected some powder melons and witnessed a strange meeting with Emily after completing her rock rejuvenation special order. And this week's special order tasked me to find a prismatic jelly, so I spent the entire day resetting the lava levels to try and find it, but I didn't find it. Day 94, I'm straight back into the mines to try and find the prismatic slime, and it did take me all the way up to 6:40 PM to find it. I rushed it straight to the wizard to wrap up another special order. This is probably one of the best special orders to do, and you can get the recipe for the monster musk. After collecting some winter forageables this morning, I got the notification that I had leveled up in farming, which means I had fully maxed out all of my skills. Which I actually managed to do in only 23 days in this video, check it out. After this one of course. I did spend day 95 doing another Skull Caverns run, and I tried to level up the mastery even more. The bonuses the Mastery Cave offers are just super good, especially that new furnace. On floor 100, I bumped into Mr. Key, who made me drink some horrible tasting iridium snake milk, which did increase my health, so worth it, I guess, maybe? Before the end of the day, I got the confirmation that I had reached level 10 farming, and of course I chose the artisan perk, which is the best perk in the game, which meant I made 25,000 gold after selling all of the artisan goods. Day 96, I'm greeted with the message that I sense a new way has opened, which is obviously the Mastery Cave. To fill up some time before the end of the video, I chose to participate in the annual Squid Fest, and getting 8 squids gave me all of these rewards. One of these was the Art of Crabbing book, which gives me a 25% chance of getting extra fish from a crab pot. Whilst I remembered, I also bought another star drop from Krobus for 20,000 gold, and met up with the wizard in the railroad, and he tasked me to find the Dark Talisman to gain access to the Witch's Swamp. After venturing into the mutant bug lair, with the help of Krobus, I collected the Dark Talisman. Whilst in here, I decided to catch the Slime Jack, and I did also try for the mutant carp, but I couldn't get it to bite. Day 97, I travelled to the Witch's Swamp and caught myself some void salmon, and I distracted the henchman with some void mayonnaise to collect the wizard's magical ink. As a reward, he allowed me to construct buildings such as obelisks and Junimo houses on the farm, although I don't know where I'm going to put them. I did decide to participate in the second and final day of the Squid Fest, and I managed to catch 10 of them, getting all of this rewards. Honestly, with the bait maker, it doesn't even take that long, so I would always recommend doing this. For some strange reason, I decided to build myself a fish pond, which is a problem for 200 days. If you guys want that, of course. What is going through my head? I barely have enough room as it is. Since the quarry cannot be used to grow crops, I chose to try and fill it with kegs. Of course, by 200 days, I want this entire thing filled. Day 98, I traded for 48 staircases, which I gained from my vast empire of crystallariums. I did decide to buy a garlic seed from the travelling cart, which alongside a melon and wheat seed, I planted on Ginger Island. I used 20 golden walnuts to repair the island hut, and then another 5 golden walnuts to repair the mailbox. I then donated a few more bones to Professor Snail, such as the mummified frog, before clearing out the dig site again. Day 99 was my first day of the travelling market, which was exciting to be honest, and I spent the entire day inside the volcano. There were so many things I needed to find inside of here, such as journal scraps, dragon teeth and bones. And I checked out the travelling market in the evening, which didn't sell too much stuff. And that means we have made it to day 100. And I've loved this series so far and would love to continue into 200 days and beyond. If you enjoyed the video, a like, subscribe will be greatly appreciated, and I have some really exciting things coming soon on the channel, so stay tuned. But for now, later.